So for day 7 of my 7 days of Halloween, I thought I would play with some distress oxides and also with some art masking fluid from Winsor & Newton. Now I've transferred the masking fluid into a fine line applicator bottle, as you can see, which gives me a little bit of control over how the masking fluid comes out of the bottle. So I've also got an 8-inch circle of watercolour cardstock which I've just taped down in a couple of places just to prevent it from moving on my craft mat while I'm squirting masking fluid all over it. So to start off with, I'm going to draw random line patterns going right the way through the centre of the circle. It doesn't matter if the one or two is off, and it's a little bit uneven because that just adds to the overall effect. And then I'm going to gradually start building up spider web patterns, bridging across with the masking fluid. All the way around the pattern. This probably will take a little bit of time, and it also will take quite a few minutes to dry, but that's fine. Just randomly creating that spider's web pattern, bridging between pieces, the final bit. And now I've got to leave that to dry. So my masking fluid is now pretty much dry enough for me to be able to work with. Now, occasionally we start down a path that we regret halfway through doing a project. And for me, if I'd have used the distress oxides, particularly with the masking fluid, I would have to have used friction to transfer the ink onto the paper, and the mere act of transferring it over the masking fluid could result in the masking fluid being rubbed off. So that kind of would have been self-defeating. So I'm glad that I thought about that before actually starting to use the distress oxides. Instead, what I've decided to do is to use dilution sprays. That way I can spritz over the top and it doesn't involve any friction whatsoever. Now my dilution spritz bottles stopped working ages and ages and ages ago. So I've transferred the colour into a brand new small spritzer bottle. This is one of the pulse spritzers from Ranger, I think. What do they call it? A pulverizer. A mini pulverizer. So I've got Tangerine Dream instead of spiced marmalade. I've got fresh lime instead of twisted citron, and I've got crushed grape instead of wilted violet. So I'm going to put those distress oxides away, and I'm going to move those bigger bottles of the dilution sprays out of the way too, leaving me just the 3 colours that I want to use, which is the green, the orange and the purple. So, to make sure that I don't get spritz and spray absolutely everywhere, I'm just going to lay an old cloth down and put my circle of watercolour cardstock over the top. And then I'm going to start adding some of the spritz once I've got it through, onto the cardstock. And as you can see, that's already started to cause a little bit of a resist. And I know the green and the orange is probably going to react to create a little bit of a brownie colour, but that's fine because that's what experimenting and playing is all about. And then I'm going to add some of my least favourite colour onto there too. And then I'm going to dry it, and then I can add some more. So my first coat of the Dilutions is dry, so I'm just going to add a little bit more of that green just to kind of get it a bit more intensified. And then I'm going to whip that with my heat gun. So my watercolour cardstock is now dry. So the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of water and I'm going to add some droplets just to add a little bit of variation. Obviously this is going to activate the ink again. And then just splatter, leave for a second or two, and then I'm going to take a piece of kitchen roll or two and I'm just going to lay it over the top to soak up that excess. And look at that lovely colour variation that's coming through. So just blot it up. We've got those lovely now lighter shades. I'm going to do a couple more. And then just flick it across the page. Don't want too much, just enough. And then blot it back up. And you can see, even if it's not immediately apparent where the water's landed, because you can see those lovely lighter splodgy areas. So we need a little bit more over this side. There's no hard and fast rule for this. It's just a question of you do as much or as little as you want to. The whole idea is literally just to play. So let that sit for a second and then blot it up. Blot it up. Again, give it a blast with the heat gun. And now that it's dry, we have the fun task of trying to remove all of the masking fluid. Like so. So this may take a little bit of time because I have to very slowly persuade all that masking fluid to come off. So what I'll do is I'll pop this on fast forward and let you enjoy the process of it peeling off and revealing our spider's web underneath. And there we go. And there's something oddly satisfying about peeling that off all the way across the page. And I think you'll agree, it was definitely worth it. How much fun was that? So, next up, we need to just add a little bit more colour. So to add a little bit more colour, I've got my jet black archival ink, if black is classed as a colour, or a shade or a tone, whatever you want to do. I'm going to call it, and I'm going to create a nice dark border all the way around the page. Now I'm using archival ink because it's non-water reactive, so it isn't going to disturb or reactivate the dilutions underneath. It doesn't take too long to do. Just adds a nice border to it. Just kind of finishes the page off. Just clear my desk. I'm ready for the next bit. So I'm going to add my phrase for my art journal page by using my Dymo Electrotag label maker, which I've already typed out what I want to say. While that's printing, I shall grab some scissors because I want to trim off some of the excess paper before sticking it all down. And then I'm going to just trim in between. And then just take off the top and the bottom just to make it a bit more proportional in size. There we go. And then I can add these to the journal page, which I'll do towards the bottom. Look, I've spelt believe wrong. Right, let's do that again. Quickly, quickly. Oh, at least I managed to catch it this time before publishing this on YouTube. Everyone's had time to bond. It's only been on there a few seconds, so we'll just whip that off. Don't believe everything you see on the web. And then just to finish that off, I'm going to grab a little bit of a small foam pad, little 3D, not too big, back off. And then I have a little spider that I'm going to stick in the centre of my art journal page. And then just to finish off, I've got a white opaque Signo rollerball pen, and I'm just going to add some little dots around the box. Which will probably disappear because these will react to the dilutions. But if anything, it will just make the area around the box a little bit lighter. You can see they've already started to fade back. And then I'm going to call this page done. So I hope you enjoyed watching that art journal page for the last day of my 7 days of Halloween for 2017. I want to thank everybody who's left me so many lovely comments through the entire of this 7 days series, and just to those people that left me the thumbs down, well, seeing as it's Halloween, you can all go to